Great. It's 8:30 PST time. So again, my apologies. I think I'm having issues with my Wi-Fi. So, but I'll try to see how best to keep the video on. Anyway, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the folks who've joined this call. I'd like to thank you for joining this webinar. Before I get started, I'll just get a few administrative stuff out of the way, and basically, we're going to have polls along the way just to get a pulse on about the subject matter, as well as in future some of the directions we would like to get a pulse of it. So do participate in that. There's an icon which you can click and then provide your inputs. And then the other thing is feel free to go ahead and pose questions. So one of the team members will take it on and organize it, and we'll probably address it in the end of the session. And finally, just wait till the end of the session, because we plan to address some announcements, some freebies, and so on and so forth. So hold tight, and it's probably going to be around 45 to 50 minutes of a webinar, and we'll close it out from there. Yeah. With that said, like today's topic, right? The use case is on the voice AI, and or the conversational AI, which is like transforming the agent's interactions for the enhanced customer experience. When you're dealing with call center platform, that's what the topic is going to be, and it is related to Gen AI capabilities. And if some of you have already embarked on this initiative, that's great. You can easily relate. Or if some of the folks who are in the cusp of thinking about it, I know it's the talk of the town among execs as well as some of the community. So if it is not directly related to the voice AI, it's some learning which you can pick along the way and probably evangelize in similar capacity and other use cases as well. So use this opportunity to relate to the Gen AI capabilities. The next, Surya. I'll go through the agenda, and it's fairly simple agenda. One, we'll talk about what Dataplatr as a service offers, and then, as I said, the contact center analytics, not the platform, but more to do with the analytics. And what are the challenges you come across? How do we deal with it? And what are the offerings? What Dataplatr service is in this space? And then subsequently introduce you to the voice AI LLM, and followed up with a demo, kind of a deep dive sessions. Obviously, it needs a lot more time, but we'll be happy to take it separately in case if it piques your interest, if there are some certain opportunity for you to get us engaged, we'll be happy to do so. And then finally with the Q&A sessions and the announcements, right? So that's the agenda. So yeah. Yeah, thanks. So I am the co-founder of Dataplatr, where we are transforming the data into actionable insights, and pretty excited for today's webinar. It's one of the first in our series. We hope to come back and address a lot more webinars in similar lines. And so with that said, I'll be joined with my colleague 𝘊𝘃𝗲𝗄, who's been in the industry for close to 13 years, forayed into data science and product management for most of his career, worked for big companies like Accenture and other startups. So he comes with abundance of experience to share. So hopefully there's some learning for you folks to take away from this webinar. Yeah. So with that said, this is the first poll. We just wanted to make sure that, we just to get a sense where the audience is coming from, so that we can accordingly, tune our topics as well. So please go ahead and take the polls. There's an icon down below. You should be able to get a pulse of what is the intent of this call you've been attending. Is it more on academic side, or is it something we're trying to understand from a marketing standpoint, or is there an engagement you intend to do in any short-term, long-term goals? So I'll be reading I'll give you another 20, 30 seconds. I can see some trends happening. There is some bit of folks leaning towards the learning aspects of it, which is good. And the other part is, folks are obviously jumped from a market trend standpoint. And then voice analytics. So another 5-10 seconds. So I think there is a kind of a little surprising. There's a lot of balance between all the three topics. Right? There's equal and weightage across the learning, the understanding, and the voice analytics. So interestingly, cool. I think I would say the market trends is what most folks have joined. That trumps, and then there are some folks probably dealing with the call center who are coming in the second part, and then some folks are coming into the learning side of it. Cool, great, good insights out there. Cool. So with that said, just a bit of background on our Dataplatr as a service. As the word denotes, right? What we try to service data on a platter, right? I mean, the metaphor is, like to take some of the ingredients, pre-cook it and be able to serve it on a platter, right? That's the thought process, what we came up with this data, and that's what we specialize in, ingesting some of these data sets, modeling it, and serving it on a plate, right? Some of the best practice from the industry, as well as in general in terms of customization and so on and so forth. So that's our background. Anything to do with data is what we specialize in, especially in the enterprise space, right? What are the services we offer? I mean, there are other verticals, but these are the three prominent for today's discussion. One is the data engineering and the BI aspects of it, which is essentially building out the pipelines from various data sources, whether it's API, batch process, real-time subscription, building those pipelines, stitching them together, making sense out of it, building the models, and then making use of the platform or the tools which you have from a visualization standpoint. So that's what we kind of offer from an end-to-end solution, and we are technology agnostic in the sense we can take on the Snowflakes or Google tech stack or the Databricks of the world, right? So today's, of course, the use case, what we're going to deal will be with on Databricks platform. The second aspect is the machine learning and AI, something which we're going to deep dive today. But that's something which we specialize in some of these models. And finally, the quick one is on the managed analytics. What we essentially do is, if there are small-sized or mid-sized companies where they don't have the investment to make for a resource or for the technology, we offer this as a service, right? We host this platform, we solutionize it for you, and pretty much outsource the end-to-end, and you can basically consume the end results of it, right? So it's kind of a out-of-the-box pre-built solutions for some of the areas. Otherwise, we'll customize and host it for you. So that's what those are the three services. Next. So with that said, the call center platform is what we are working on today, right? So I won't get into too much of details here. You probably know some of the challenges you face. It's not an exhaustive list, but if you really look at, right, some of the key things is, there's obviously a lot of frustration within the customer satisfaction scores, and it's fairly low, partially because you don't have that level of insights within your data sets, right? Or there's a limitation within the call center platform to provide you not just operational, but also from an analytics standpoint. The other thing is, when you don't have the insights into those data sets, then you end up having kind of a shooting blind, not able to provide the right insights to the agents to do his or her job. So you end up seeing some performance challenges, and obviously it bleeds into the training aspects of it. And then improving some of the other scores, average handle times, and first time call resolutions, NPS scores, and so on and so forth, which at the end of the day impacts your bottom line or the operational costs, right? So and the traditional QA process, compliance issues, and the and the slower resolution, right? When you don't have some of these insights. So there are a lot more challenges, but let me jump into the application side of it, and that way we can come back to the challenges, what you can relate to, right? So in the contact center analytics, right? So coming from the challenges, right? So if you're looking at the use case for today, right? It's you can relate this to a sales operations department or a service center, a customer care, or if the client they are outsourcing this to a BPO company, right? This is where typically you can relate to this call center platform, right? Most of the companies have a platform or two, right? Now, this is across industries, whether you're talking of healthcare or a financial industry or an insurance industry, you always have these platforms to deal with. And then the conversation, what you see on the left-hand side, right, dealing with agents to the customer or vice versa, by the team, by the supervisor, or at the business unit level for a product level, you always see those interactions and those data points getting generated out of those platforms, right? Now, we're not, I mean, there are quite a few platforms out available, like the Genesis, the Finance, and Ring Centrals, and the new generations of Google and AWS. So instead of the platform, what we need is the data points coming out of it. Now you're dealing with close to 25 to 40 odd APIs, a complex set of data sets which you get in order to build this metrics, right? Or the KPIs which will move the needle for the company. That is one part. And then, if you're dealing with an operational metrics, again, you're dealing close to 100 odd data points. Now, some of these platforms do solve this problem, but they solve it in kind of an isolation or in silos, right? So if and then you end up having multiple platforms trying to get these data points and be able to mash it up together, right? So you're looking at the agent performance to handle all the average handle time, talk time, and so on and so forth. And same goes with the workforce management and quality. So having said that, these are one of the core traditional data sets which you can kind of have to solve. With that said, if the business were to come back and ask, hey, these are great metrics for me to make certain decisions, but what about the tone of those calls, right? Just knowing the average handle time, or just knowing how the agent is performing from a metric standpoint does not give you that insight. But if you want to know how did the call start, what was the tone of the call, and how did it end, right? And what is the sentiment analysis of that part, or what are the typical topics you get to see often versus some of the subtopics, and can I get a summarization of the call? You want to handle certain agents, so certain outliers, right? How do you deal with it, right? And that's where the Gen AI comes into picture, right? So so the top portions, which is what today's topic is about, and instead of me speaking very generically, I will hand it over to Surya to double click that and take it further, right? So yeah, Surya, you can proceed.
Thanks, Harish, for setting the stage for me, and thank you for that amazing introduction. Thanks for the audience for giving a valuable time to us, and I hope we, at the end of the session, we have a good understanding of what voice AI is, what is the voice AI implementation at Dataplatr, and have some engaging conversations at the tail end of this whole session. With that said, let's go ahead and take it to the next stage. Right. Before that, let's quickly jump into a quick poll. Please, like before, please be generous and help us understand your intent, your understanding of what voice AI is. That will help me to give a fair understanding of what and where we stand from a voice AI understanding perspective. Cool. So I see some quick poll results coming in.
Ooh.
Fastest fingers first, I guess, is much more interesting rather than a generous response. But yeah, this is also good. I see fairly quite a lot of people are aware, and a fair distribution of people who are unfamiliar and are interested. I will definitely try my best to address your PK your interest by the end of this, along with just an introduction. We'll wait for another 5 seconds for some of the folks who are still on the edge. So I see that quite a few are unfamiliar. Some of them are looking forward to this solution for implementing it to analyze calls. Some are, I think, from the business perspective, we are more interested on the monetary side and the customer experience perspective. Great. So cool. With that, let me quickly start off. And before we get into the nitty-gritties, I guess to give justice to all the audience, I will step a few steps back, and then we'll talk about what goes into this voice AI, and then we'll go into the complete implementation. So at Dataplatr, what do we mean by voice AI? As Harish introduced Dataplatr to you guys, right? We sit in between all these enterprise applications and help you build interesting and amazing data models and convert them into valuable KPIs for your business. So similarly, we want to convert the untapped voice recording call data that is available with all the contact center and other businesses, and convert them into interesting KPIs or interesting or insightful business dashboards. So that's very simple in one line. Voice calls conversations to insightful dashboards is what we eventually will be talking about in this whole session. What are those insights? Some of them we already saw in one of the previous slides. Is like what is the call summary? We do not, in this fast-paced time, we do not have the time to go through all of the conversations, which can extend to an hour or two. So summarizing the call, extracting the topic, automating the categorization, hierarchical categorization as well. What we are very much interested in, how was the speakers, what was the speaker trends across the call, and also some of the metrics like in a call conversation, we do not want to have a lot of empty or dead air times or people not speaking or call hold times. Those are some of the interesting conversational KPIs. But we at Dataplatr have not just stopped at simply extracting the KPIs. We have also taken the next step to how we can extract information about the agent performance, and also take them to the next logical step, which is call to actions. With this generative AI, we are able to extract them. Since we are converting the audio or call to text, we can have a healthy monitoring of compliance dialogue, so that the agents are taking up your business compliance dialogues. They are having the right salutations and endings to their call. Also, can we extract some coaching pointers from the conversations that the agents are having, so that they can be improved upon and they can work upon to improve the overall customer experience for your business. So this is the power of LLM and generative AI that we have implemented. We have a success story as well. So this is what we eventually is a summary of what we have done. Taking a step back, what do we mean by large language models? Just to take you a little out of context. So it all starts with machine learning. Machine learning are nothing but mathematical models which help you understand your patterns within your historical data. The next step to machine learning is nothing but deep learning or neural networks, which are layered, which almost mimic your human neural network, which have multiple layered mathematical functions or neurons, which help to understand even deeper patterns within your data. Large language models is a type of implementation of these deep learning language or deep neural networks, which excel in language processing tasks. And the best part is they are able to generate near human natural language or sequences of text which have some context to it. A very simple pictorial representation, as you can see on the left, is we have you feed in the input. It can be an audio or a text. It converts into there are a lot of encoders which will go through your audio, convert it into text, and then finally, based on your prompt or your request, it will give you the sequence of output. In case of large language models, there are 3 key terms which we need to understand. Basically, foundational model or model inferences. There are a lot of companies out there which are churning out every day a new large language model. The Geminis and the Mistrals and all those models out there. You see the Groks also, if someone are a bit into the more Elon Musk kind of an LLM taste. So These companies have already trained your natural or deep learning models on a huge amount of data, so you can directly use them off the shelf. The problem with them is they do not have business context. So in case if you are more particular about your business context and accuracy about the results or the LLM generation, we need to do model training. Now, model training incurs a lot of huge amounts of data to train, computational power, and also the cost. So there is another final aspect is where we call as model fine tuning, which is nothing but a middle ground of there are a lot of models which are already trained by these huge companies. We can simply adjust the context of the vocabulary or of the words for your business context. So that is nothing but model fine tuning. So these are quick, short introductions to what eventually ends up helping this success, this implementation. A quick big pictorial representation of what we actually spoke about. Huge amounts of text data. The mathematical function is trained on it. It takes a lot of GPU computational processes, and eventually it generates its own vocabulary or vector representation or word embedding. So next time if you hear those terms, I hope you understand what it means. Vector databases, word embedding, and all those things. Basically, they are mathematical representation of your text. Computers are nothing but bits and bytes, so they do not understand text. So this is what it is all about at the model training part. Now, I hope with that we have a bit of context on what is the technology that is basically the Gen AI and the LLMs, and which help us build these solutions right now in the market. Now, the meat of the whole conversation is how we have implemented it. So a quick blowout. So this is how we have done it from the left to right. We have sourcing of data. We pass it through a pipeline, and then eventually persist or write it to a database. And then from the database, we source it into the business intelligence tool. For our reference over here, we are using a tech stack which includes the Databricks infrastructure, which manages the backend AWS infrastructure such as the S3 buckets, the AWS data, the Databricks Delta Lake is where the final data or the process KPIs are stored into. And then for our business reporting, we have used Power BI as a UI. We will look at these in our demo. So let's go step by step into this implementation. So first step is obviously you have all these call conversations and the Genesis and the Avayas who do their operational handling of all the audio calls. They do the recording. So what we do is either we source the call audio records directly from those systems, or pass it or save it onto intermediary. For in our case, we have saved it into S3 buckets. S3 buckets are nothing but your storage space where we move all your audio recordings to. From those audio recordings, we move it into the Databricks space where we run the codes which processes and converts all these audio data into interesting KPIs. And the first step is converting the audio data into text, or basically transcription. Now here, although we have just written automatic speech recognition, it also goes through multiple steps, which I will deep dive with the pseudo code demo. Basically what it does, it just simply doesn't transcribe your audio calls from audio to text, but also it does segmentation. It assigns timestamps, start and end time for your calls, for your speakers, and also what the speaker or which is the speaker and what is the caption that that speaker has spoken. So we have detailed insights into the conversation right off this part. Now, this is finally fed into your next step. So each of these steps, right, the step number 3, where we are at right now is basically we do the summarization. So in case of summarization, there is a large language model which we feed into this text transcript, and it gives you a quick short summarization. At this stage, we are able to control the length and the count of words in which we want to summarize our call. So that is the best part about it. So it becomes easy to understand all the call conversations that are happening within your business. Other than that, we also are able to identify the topics of the conversations, or basically the problems or the issues which we are handling or the agents are handling within your business. This is also a great insights into eventually doing a lot of insights, right? Basically KPIs such as what are the top issues that are happening within your business, and the agents are engaged in which kind of topics are nothing but the issues that are being talked about. Then further is the individual caption. As I had mentioned, we have the caption with the timestamp. So we do sentiments. So these are these are the sentiments extractions from each of the captions, or basically what is the overall sentiment of the person speaking at that particular timestamp. What is the business use case? We will go through that. Basically, it helps us to understand if there are any issues, if there are any escalations, or if there are any, as we said, right, the compliance monitoring and all those things. We are able to do that along with a sentiment context to that. Finally, we can also extract the suggestions or agent coaching points using large language models from these call transcripts. This is one of the interesting, and there are quite a few other KPIs. Now, this is not the only KPIs that can be drawn. The KPIs is only limited to the amount of data and what is the data that we have, wherein Dataplatr is well placed as a partner to help you understand your business, your data, and what are the possible KPIs and the interesting or the insightful reports that can be built for you. Finally, we persist these all these KPIs into a intermediary database, and then from there we source it into a business report. A caveat here for our use case for conversational purposes, here we are using Databricks Power BI, but Dataplatr is not technology agnostic. We have also implemented a similar solution within the GCP infrastructure as well. So we can definitely have conversations around the Azures and the Snowflakes and the Databricks of the infrastructure as a service partners for your business. So having said that, I think let's take a quick short look at what the KPIs we are talking about. So this is an immediate snapshot of the actual data or the columns that we have persisted. So for our use case, we have divided the KPIs into inter-call KPIs and intra-call KPIs. Inter-call are basically the overall KPIs across all the call conversations that you have, and intra-call is nothing but a deep dive of KPIs within or the insights within your individual call. So some of the, and also the data dictionary is nothing but which will help with this, helps us to understand what the column is, and what the business context. So for example, the call summary is very obvious, but agent coaching is nothing but the model suggested points where agents can improve upon the overall user or overall speaker sentiments. The time silence is nothing but the dead air time, or this is basically the time of hold or the time gap between a speaker speaking and responding to your questions. So again, not an exhaustive list, just for our conversational purposes. There are quite a bit more of these KPIs, but yeah, keeping the business and the technical folks in mind, we have limited to these KPIs. Again, a quick snapshot of what it actually looks at the back end. These are all the text that you see here are actually generated by the large language models once they process the review calls. This is a quick snapshot of what the database looks like for the non-technical folks. Once we persist our data, we extract the insights, we put it into a persist is nothing but we save it onto a database, and then from these databases and the tables that we build our business intelligence reports. With this, I think let's look at some visual representation of all the mumbo jumbos that I've been speaking so far. So for our use case, as I said, we are using Power BI. So as I mentioned, we have the two sub dashboards, the inter-call and the intra-call sub dashboard. The inter-call is the overall. So for our demo purposes or for our conversation purposes, we have 3 calls, such as the immediate KPIs that we've drawn for the time for which the agent is speaking, the time for which the employee is speaking. Here, the employee can be a customer or any other third person, and the total number of calls that we have. What are the call IDs, the call category, the call subcategory, and also a quick summary of the call conversations that have happened within your business. And then if we want to get into a bit more deeper dive into what individual calls happen, for example, let me take this as an example and let me deep dive into this. So here we can see that, okay, within this call, there's a fair bit of dead air time, so we can understand, or we can try to dive into it, why or what was the reason for this whole time. Overall, overall employee sentiment seems to be bad, so we definitely need to address this call conversation. The agent seems to have handled this conversation fairly good. This is the amount of time each of that the time of speech, or how much time each of the person, so the customer or the employee has spoken for more time, which means this call definitely is of concern. This is the part where I was saying that we just don't do audio to text, but we also have the timestamp, the start end, which is the speaker, who is the speaker who's speaking, what is the overall sentiment for that particular. And these are all probabilistic. They are all based on the large language model, so the values can differ. And finally, the trends that we can visualize at overall what is the particular trend happening. So we can see that at this point in time, for the employee, the negative sentiment was the highest. So there are around 4 points in time where the negative sentiments were the highest, and we can deep dive further into and analyze them. Basically, this will help us to understand, okay, what was the reason at and what point of time, what was the conversation between the employee and the agent, and then finally we can speak to the agent and understand how or what was the issue that came about. And finally, we also have a quick transcript of the conversation and also the agent coaching points. So these are some of the interesting coaching points that the LLMs help us. So maybe the agent needs to improve on active listening, it needs to improve on the empathy, the communication needs to be clear. So these are the interesting KPIs that were not available to us before large language models and the advancements in the text generation and the generative AI space. With this, let me quickly take you all through a quick pseudocode. And so this is not the exact code. This is purely a pseudocode, or basically an example code of what actually we have done to get to from audio to the dashboard that I just presented. So this is a Databricks infrastructure where we have our notebook. So basically the runtime where we run the Python code, everything is implemented within the Python. These are some of the top steps. And the interesting part is basically the large language models. So these are some of the models that we have used for our use case. Also, a quick understanding, this is not limited. There are a host. If you go on the open source platforms such as the Hugging Face and all, there are quite a lot of large language models for each of your NLP task or natural language task or text generation task. So based on your data, we have to do an iterative understanding of which is the best fit model. For our case, we have used these. The 𝘆ci𝑂𝗍𝗋 is the open source model, and these are all open sources. They are not paywall. These are the models which have the 𝘆ci𝑂𝗍𝗋 helps us to transcribe the audio to the time-stamped caption and speaker perspective data. And finally, this is the model that we have used to extract the overall sentiments for the particular caption. 𝘆cie_'𝗿 text summarization is the model that we've used to extract the text summary and bird topic in the space of natural language processing. Is the go-to for extracting the overall topics within a corpus of text. So this is there, and then finally we leverage these models into our code. The transcribing the audio file into the timestamp base, it takes multiple steps. It first does a transcription, and then it does segmentation and alignment of conversations with the timestamps, and finally it assigns the speakers to the sentiment or the speaker or the caption that the speaker has spoken along with that timestamp. And then we are further going down into extracting the sentiments. I think we have that. This is sharp analysis, a little technical step. So we do the sentiment analysis on the caption, and then we mathematically calculate the start time, the silence time, and for how much time which speaker is speaking, and we finally persist it to a database. So this is a quick introduction. I hope I was not too technical. So this is just a sample code, a pseudocode of what exactly, and there's a lot more that happened at the backend. But with that, I am done with my demo. I hope it made quite a bit of sense. So quickly, before I hand it back, for interest of our conversation, I seem to have some time. So a few points over here. We have leveraged open source large language models and Databricks and Power BI. There are options to also have multimodal models or also paywalled models, basically the models which are premium. We have to pay a premium for the text generation. We can have conversations around your implementation requirements based on the business, the time to implementation, and also the accuracy and the further requirements for your solution. With that, I guess that's my time. So fine. Now I think we can have this poll and get a fair understanding of how fairly or well did I do in explaining what voice AI is. Please go ahead and help us understand your responses. Also, how soon are you interested to, or are you already in plans, and what is the timeline that we can expect to be engaging in the near future or the long-term future? Okay, I guess most of us were in the space for understanding what voice AI and what the generative AI is for the contact center and the voice call conversations. Excited to see some of the audience interested to have this implementation in the near future as well. We will provide with you the contact informations at the end of this call, of this webinar, and please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll definitely be excited to have this conversation with you guys. With that, I guess this is my time. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in, and I'll hand it back to Harish.
Thanks, Surya. That was interesting. I hope folks have taken away some data points for them to go and brood over it. Just a final thought, just in terms of the announcements, if you want to bring that up. Given that there are so many use cases happening, if we are in a position to offer certain free consulting services for you from our side, and if you're evaluating a GenAI initiative within your organization, you don't know what the technology needs to be and what the architecture needs to be. Is there a use case? Can you evaluate those use cases, and does it make sense? Obviously, from a CFO standpoint, it has to add some level of cash flow into the system or to the bottom line, right? So if there are such initiatives, we'll be happy to go through a workshop, provide our inputs, and give some quick pilot projects or POCs depending on the gravity of the problem you're trying to solve. We'll be happy to do that. So do reach out to us. The other point was, in terms of our future initiatives, right? If it is of your interest, we intend to come back with more webinars, one in similar lines on the GCP tech stack. What you saw today was the Databricks. And so that is something we intend to do. Besides that, we do have a number of pre-built solutions or data models, right? In case of Oracle financials or Oracle implementation, if it is part of your ERP ecosystem, we have this solution, what I just mentioned. We plan to do a deep dive on that. A similar webinar on the transformations logic, especially on the BI space, where for the cloud solutions, you don't have a clean way of doing transformation. So we will be demoing a DBT or a Google's data form to undertake the transformation logic and how it is implemented, what are the best practices, and so on and so forth, based on our past experiences. And then finally, Microsoft Fabric. But if there are other topics which is of your interest, feel free to suggest or reach out to us at info@Dataplatr, and also follow us on Medium. We've written a lot of use cases for you to go through it, and then on the LinkedIn website. So that is where we are. And thanks for joining this call. Here's the final contact information, just in case. It's fairly easy to remember. It's just info@Dataplatr, and one of our team members would certainly reach out to you. Thanks. I hope it was useful. And again, looking forward for engaging in further webinars. Thanks, Surya, for all the insights. Appreciate it. And the rest of the team for making this happen. I know it's our first webinar, and we'll certainly have a regular cadence to come back and present some interesting topics. And sorry about my glitch on the Wi-Fi. You know, I for some reason it's in and out. And
finally, we can see you, Harish. Thanks again, thank you, audience, for spending your time. And I hope, Paul, you've been able to extract what you were looking forward to. Also, we are excited to be reached out to and have more conversations with you guys. Thanks everyone for making this happen.
Any Q&A? Oh, so do you want? Yeah, okay. There were a couple of Q&A. Probably we're running short of time. Do you want to take one of the Q&A just to wrap it up?
Sure, Harish.
Okay. Just one last question is, folks have asked, what is the difference between voice AI implementation before and after LLMs? You know, just
right. Right. So as I mentioned, right, as we had gone quickly, before LLMs, there were quite a lot of steps which were hard to do because there was not a lot of available data. The automatic speech recognition has multiple steps, even beyond what I've already said. With the large language models, there is a lot of pre-training already happened, so it becomes easier to do the transcriptions. And also with the availability of all these open source models in the market, the large language models of the Mistrals and all these other open sources, the Metas that are giving us, the model inferences is the best part, where we can, for POCs, for MVPs, from input to your inference. Inference is basically the output generation. So that is really the exciting part. The initial algorithms, which were very difficult and technical to implement, but now they are all very easy, and within few codes you can do some implementations. But when it comes to actual when you look at a higher accuracy and your business context, that's where you need technical capabilities, and that's where Dataplatr is definitely a great friend to have.
Thank you. So, and there are a couple of questions we can certainly address it. Part of you know, we can reach out offline and address it. Thanks again. We'll wrap up the call. Ratna, appreciate for putting this together.
Thank you, team. Thanks once again.
Thank you. Goodbye.